Okay.
The living global population is rapidly increasing from the current number of over 7 billion to 9 billion plus humans by 2050. Mathur Jagadish, a biotechnologist in Bangalore, India, warns us about the growing global population and specifically India's need to double its agriculture production. Hello everyone, my name is Alec Brogan and today I will be discussing the importance of genetically modified crops and the role they will play in feeding the ever-growing human population. This topic should be important to all of us because as the population grows, usable farmland will decrease and we need to have the highest yield possible. While I may not be an expert, I have done extensive research on the subject and hope to inform you about both sides of the argument and persuade you that GMO crops can be safe and are necessary. In the next few minutes, I'll discuss what genetically modified crops are, the growth rate of the human population, yield, safe use of GMOs, and the controversy behind GMOs. In my survey, I asked if you knew what GMO crops are, and half were unaware of what genetically modified crops are. So first I will discuss what they are and how they are used. For those unaware, genetic modification is the modification of plant DNA through the permanent integration of engineered sequences using biological techniques. In Susie Key's article, Genetically Modified Plants and Human Health, she discusses how this process is similar to how plants with favorable characteristics have been produced for thousands of years by conventional breeding methods. These desirable traits are selected and combined by repeated sexual crossings over many generations. This process is long, and genetic engineering is just an accelerated means of doing the same thing. In the survey, I also asked what types of crops are genetically modified, and the answer varied. But one stated that it was most crops, which is correct, because currently over 90% of crops grown in the United States are genetically modified. Genetic modification has been used for many years and for a variety of reasons, but the human population is ever growing, like I mentioned earlier. Jagadish predicts the world human population will have grown by at least 2 billion over the next 30 years, and how the Indian population is expected to increase 1.5 billion. In Sarala article, The Science of GMOs, from the Penn State Ag Science magazine, she adds the argument about population issues, stating that around 870 million people suffer from chronic undernourishment. Jagadish also expresses the need for global yield to double while using less land and resources. He then communicates things that affect yield, such as germplasm quality, pest, disease, water, and soil quality. To get around these things that affect yield, genetically modified crops can use genes from another plant or microbe, which are resistant to things such as pests and disease, to alter the genetic code in a beneficial manner. For example, since the introduction of GM cotton, India has doubled its production and has become the second largest producer globally. While cotton is not edible, it is a fitting example of how genetic modification can increase yield even while pesticide usage went down 55%. Similar to Jagadish, Simone Kamenju from the Department of Agriculture Economics at the University of Nairobi and Hugo de Groot from the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center used their article, Consumer Willingness to Pay for Genetically Modified Food in Kenya, to discuss the need for GM crops in their home country of Kenya. They tell us that GM crops with pest resistance from a gene derived from a common soil bacteria is a much cheaper alternative than the use of pesticides, due to higher and more stable yields. They also state that the crop losses from stem borers are estimated at 417,000 tons annually, but for some reason consumer acceptance is still low in the country. They touch on why some African countries won't grow these crops because of a lack of research on the opinions of consumers and producers. The authors argue that high trust in government, better perception of the scientific community, and more positive media influence are the main reasons GMs are more widely accepted in countries like US and China. Many still fear using GMOs, even though Kamenju and de Groot tell us that the scientific community has come to a consensus that the consumption of GM foods poses no health risks different from the consumption of their conventional counterparts. In the article, Study on the Safety of Genetically Modified Food Biotechnology Based on the Legal System of Food Safety, written by Songfei Chen, Shongwen Chen, and Liang Liang, they delve deeper into the potential harm to human health and the environment. Another fear is the lack of research on the long-term environmental and health effects because of the limited amount of time genetic modification has been around. Chen, and Liang also state one of the benefits of genetic modification is the resistance of toxicity, which can increase the yield and help countries with a food crisis while having no evidence of being harmful to human health. In my survey, I asked, what is your opinion on the use of genetically modified crops in food? Generally, the response was a lack of knowledge, but one person answered that there aren't any known long-term effects on the human body. I also asked if you think genetically modified crops are dangerous. All the answers were no except one, which I believe isn't a bad view. This aligns with the research I've done because many of the authors have noted that GMOs are not dangerous, but more research needs to be done due to their short lifespan. Along with the debate of the safety of GMOs comes numerous other controversies like seed usage and food labeling. Xenia Moran adds this in her article, Genetically Modified Food from Crops, Progress, Pawns, and Possibilities, stating that with GM crops, farmers must buy their seeds and may no longer plant seeds they collect. This is not unusual for farmers who have used hybrid seeds, but might be unusual to others, especially those who have collected seeds and done their own selective breeding. In the article, Science Supports the Need for GM Food Labeling, David Schubert, professor and head of the Cellular Neurobiology Lab at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies, approaches the topic of labeling genetically modified food, claiming that people have the right to know what they're ingesting. While the benefits of genetic modification are infinite, so are the possibilities of human harm. For now, there is little evidence supporting the negative effects of GMO on humans, but there still is a possibility because of the infinite modifications you can do to these crops. As David Schubert stated, each newly developed crop is different and can have varying effects on health risks. The possibilities of genetic modification crops are endless, both positive and negative, but more research needs to be done in the field of genetic modification, and we have a responsibility globally to use this technology intelligently, responsibly, and safely. Hopefully, by touching on both sides of the argument, I have persuaded you about the importance of genetically modified crops and the role they will play in feeding the future human population.